बच्चों, a very warm welcome to Suni IAS. Today myself Shikha, I'll be taking up the next session for your classes. We are continuing with the discussion on the population geography. Okay, and I am simultaneously now starting to integrate some concepts from even paper 2. Okay, so you will have an interlinkage of the population geography and the cultural settings along with the paper 1 concepts. Okay, so hence we will be discussing in this manner so that you will understand these concepts. So bachcho, let's start the discussion for today's class. But before I start the discussion, let me tell you some important aspects, and that are regarding the summarization. Summarization is something which you are keenly interested to know. I have received many messages asking me, ma'am, how should I make summaries? Is my summarization correct? Okay. So first of all, I will show you summaries. Then I will tell you where to submit your summaries. Okay. So first of all, you can see this as a sample. Okay, basically we have not started map making, but whenever I'm showcasing you certain maps, bacho, okay, so what you need to do is you can draw small maps, small regional maps, okay, maps at the scale of India, okay, at the scale of pan world maps, etc. It is up to you. As per the discussion in classes, you can draw different type of maps. Now, for example, if we have taken one particular region, okay, and you need to memorize certain facts also. So one way is that you can draw a political map, okay, with respect to that particular region. The region shown here is South America, okay. Then you can mention the name of countries, some factual aspects, right? And then secondly, along with this map itself, you can also show some of the physiographic aspects. So for example, important deserts like Atacama, Patagonia, okay, important lakes here, important grasslands. So grasslands are also an important topographical feature across South America, right? So hence you can also draw the physiographic aspects, okay, along with the political aspects. So hence, in that particular map itself, on one page, you will take one page, you will draw that political demarcations on the map, and then along with that the physiographic aspects. ये parallelly आप कर सकते हैं. तो ये एक तरीका हो गया how to draw summarization of the maps, right? So maps can be drawn on one particular page in this manner. So let's assume that this is your A4 sheet. So on top left corner, you can draw a map. Then physiographic aspects, so maybe grasslands, lakes, etc. It's quite possible that it will not come on one page, so you can replicate the similar pattern on the second page, that is map along with discussion. Okay, so this is one example of summarization. You can always draw summaries in this format. You will always be able to remember the factual aspects. Otherwise, it is very difficult for you to remember lakes, grasslands, etc. But if you summarize in form of your short handwritten summaries, you will always be able to remember that. Okay, let me assure you. Then secondly, as we are continuing with our discussion of the population geography, so this is another sample of summarization. Now what you can do is you can take that A4 sheet, divide into 3 columns or 2 columns, okay, as per your convenience. If you are not able to take 3 columns, you can also take 2 columns, okay. But yes, the perspective is very simple. That is from the entire class notes, okay, that is maybe coming for 10 to 11 pages. You need to summarize them in one page or at maximum now, because you are learning initially the summarization of class notes in 2 pages or else in 1 page. Okay, so you will take this A4 sheet, divide this into columns, okay, or divide into 2 columns, and then you will start writing those important aspects from class which you think are very important and which needs to be in your summaries. Not necessarily you will be repeating the entire sentence. You can just write down the formalizations. For example, we have discussed the formulas with respect to age specific fertility rate. So just mention the formula, just few examples, maybe a definition, maybe name of something else. Okay, and because I've shown you different maps, so now you can also replicate those maps in your summarizations. So the perspective of summary is very clear. That is step 1, we will attend the classes regularly. Secondly, we will make the summarizations on a daily basis. And third, from the summarizations, you will learn how to write good answers. There is no other technique for writing good answers. If you skip this step, that is, you're not summarizing your class notes, then again there will be a difficulty in the mains examination. You will not be able to, unfortunately, write good answers. And please hold on for answer writing. We will start that after few classes. You do not have enough content to write answers for now. Okay. Then secondly, way to submit the summarizations. So I'll be forwarding you on email a Google Drive link. Okay. So in this Google Drive link, what we will do is a date-wise folder. Okay. Okay. You can make a date-wise folder also, or you can just name your PDF. If this is not required, then name your PDF of the summary as per the date. Okay. If this is not required, then what we can do is, for example, you have made the summarization. Okay. Then name it as, so let's say 14th April underscore CS. That is class summary. Okay. So I will be able to recall. So I have seen the summarization till 16th April. I have not seen the summarization onwards 16th April. So I will be able to quickly recall that. Okay. So my suggestion is, please do this. That is 14th April underscore CS. That is class summarization. Okay. So I will go to this Google link. I will download your summarization, which will be in format of either a PDF, okay, or an image format of the summarization. आप उसको PDF में save करेंगे तो it will be better, okay, or you can save it in image format. तो scan वाला app होता है आपके mobiles में. So download the scanner app, scan your summarization, your hard copy, submit in the format of a soft copy. I will go through the summarization. I will put in some remarks. Then you can review it. Okay. So maybe I will write down CS underscore 1. In this format, I will be checking your summarization. Okay. And then I will give you feedback. I hope this is clear to you. Again, I'm repeating for one more time. That is, I will share on your emails. Okay. The emails which you have given in the office, I will be sharing a Google Drive link. There you can submit your summarizations in form of date. Please name the files properly, otherwise I will not be able to keep track of so many students. Okay. So 14th April CS underscore CS. Okay. And it will be better that you name also the file as per your name. So for example, 14th April. So let me give you the correct format itself. So how you will name your files? You will name your files in this manner. Date underscore name underscore CS. So for example, 14 April underscore Anjali underscore CS. So this will be the format of your class summarization. I hope this is clear to you. All students will name their summaries in this format. Next, whenever you will be given the answer writing assignment, okay, then you will not write CS. For the answers, you will write underscore answer. Let's say it's for geomorphology, so you will write geomorphology. Okay. Assignment 1 or assignment 2, etc. So this will be the format for submitting answers. I hope you will not do it wrong. Otherwise, I will lose track of your summaries and answers. We are just beginning with the course. Later on, you will ask me, where are my answers, ma'am? Why you haven't submitted? Why you haven't checked, etc. Okay? If you will not rename it properly, then I will lose track of it. So please rename it in this format: date, name, CS for class summarization, date, name, and answer geomorphology 1, 2, 3, etc. as per the assignment number. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. And please be aware of the fact, as soon as the classes starts, okay, so much sooner they will also end, right? You will not know when the pace of the class it starts taking up. Okay, we will have much more advanced level topics at that time. If you will not keep up pace with the classes, if you will not be making up summarizations, not submitting answers, later on it will be very difficult for you to keep track. For example, let me tell you, whenever the results are declared each and every year, there are only handful of students who pass the examination, right? But let me tell you, have a firm belief. If you have been preparing consistently in the past year, there are chances that you will clear the examination, right? The one most important aspect in this examination is consistency. Do not lose faith, do not lose hope. Keep on working very hard. Let's start the discussion now. So I think let's quickly revise the topics for the yesterday class, what we had covered. So in the yesterday's class, I had started with the concept, okay, some basic concepts around the population numbers, etc. And then we had moved towards the demographic attributes. And in demographic attributes, we had covered some important demographic attributes. Okay, so for example, the crude birth rate, crude death rates, okay, the sex ratio, fertility rates, age specific fertility rate, etc. Now let's move to the next discussion. Very important discussion, that is the dependency ratio and why it is important for India especially. Okay. So I'm giving you certain additional inputs also which you need to write in your notes. Okay. Because this question has been asked multiple times in paper 2. They can always ask you anytime because India is in a very important stage of demographic transition. Okay. So what do we mean by dependency ratio? As the name suggests, this is a ratio, okay, which suggests about the number of dependents, okay, as to the population of non-dependents. So who is the dependent population? The dependent population is basically, okay, that is the number of dependents or the non-working age population, okay, that is the population which is aged either less than 15 or more than 64 years of age. So we will combine both the population numbers, that is the number of people, okay, residing in that particular country, that is less than 15 years of age and plus more than 64 years of age, divided by population aged between 15 to 64. So we will get the dependency ratio. Now basically, what do we want to understand from the dependency ratio? Is that we need to understand the number of dependents population बच्चों. Okay. So we are talking about two age groups. Okay. The dependent population okay, out of total population. Now the definition is simple, but we need to understand why dependency ratio and its understanding is very crucial for us. Okay, so dependency ratio से हमें पता लग रहा है that is what is the proportion of the dependents as a proportion of the total population. Okay, so that is with respect to first the age group between 0 to 40 and second 65 years and above. Now this particular age group that is 0 to 14. Okay, so these are basically the children, school going children, and higher proportion of this would indicate that the population is still growing at a very fast pace in a country. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. So if we have a large base of population in the young age groups, that is between 0 to 5, 5 to 10, that means we are still having a very high birth rate. Okay, so write down the first point. The dependency ratio indicates the population between 0 to 14 and 65 years and above as a composition of the total population. Now write down the second point. If the population between 0 to 14 years, if the population between 0 to 14 years is high as a proportion of total population, that indicates that the base of the population is very large, and the country is still having higher birth rates, higher crude birth rates. Okay? Higher crude birth rates. We will be learning about pyramids maybe today or maybe tomorrow, then you will understand that in a better manner. Next point, and the more important discussion from the dependency ratio, is regarding the second age bracket, that is 65 years and above. Write down the next point. However, if the proportion of 65 years and more age bracket is high as a proportion of total population composition, or write down as a proportion of total population, do not write composition, as a proportion of total population, that indicates that there is large number of elderly in the total population. Okay, definitely it indicates the elderly age group. Now see, okay, so let's assume that the total population here, okay, that is 900, okay, and 0 to 14 is 200, 400 and 300, so on, as per the different age groups. Now gradually, if the population of elderly is increasing, that would clearly indicate that the population here might be decreasing, or here it might be decreasing, and as a total population, okay, as a proportion of the total population, the elderly age group, that is increasing. So the population that is 65 years and above, that is increasing. That would also mean a decline here in this age bracket, which is the working age population. So hence, this is the challenge for us. Okay, wherever the elderly population is increasing. So there are many countries which are facing this particular problem. That is an increase in the elderly age group and leading to a deficit in the working age proportion. And hence, this is a challenge in the coming decades for these countries, right? So write down a few points about this particular aspect in the dependency ratio. Write down first point in this particular aspect, in the elderly, okay? So if the population of elderly increases, then there can be multiple outcomes. There can be multiple outcomes as the countries like Japan, okay, Germany, etc. are facing, especially Japan. Okay, what can be the outcomes? So first of all, we will write down the challenges. First can be reduction in the working age population. Reduction in the working age population. Second, challenges for social security. Challenges for social security. Okay. So these are the challenges being faced by elderly population, right? Third, isolation and mental health challenges like depression. Fourth, economic challenges because lack of a sustainable income. Okay, and lack of pensions, especially across countries like India, etc. So social challenges hai, economic challenges hai, right? Economic challenges are further magnified in case of elderly women. So write down another sub point in the same point, that is economic challenges में लिखिए कि the challenges are magnified in case of the elderly women population. The elderly women population. Okay. So इसको एक term दे देते हैं. The term is feminization of poverty. So I hope you are able to understand this feminization of poverty, right? Feminization of poverty in elderly females. So feminization of poverty, there is another term, that is feminization of agriculture. So that would mean that more number of females being engaged in the agriculture, right? Feminization of poverty means more proportion of women facing the problems related to poverty. Okay, so feminization of poverty, feminization of agriculture, etc. So I hope that this term is clear to you. So feminization of poverty in elderly female, that is one major challenge, right? So dependency ratios, if they are increasing in a particular population, that would mean that there will be challenges in the coming decades. Now this is the case of India, bachcho. Okay, so write down example of India. For India, approximately 8% of the population falls in the elderly age bracket. Okay, now for India it can be a bigger challenge because the proportion of the elderly as a proportion of total population in India, that is increasing, okay, at a very fast pace. I'll be taking up a separate discussion when we will be discussing about the demographic aspects of India. Okay, so I'm just giving a passing reference here, that is for India the elderly population is 8%, but it is growing at a staggering pace, okay, which is a major challenge. There are few terms which are associated with the elderly population, okay. So just write down these terms, you should know them. That is silver economy. So silver economy is nothing else but the term which is associated with the elderly population. Okay. Now see, the elderly population can be engaged in the managerial roles. They can be utilized. Okay. Their skills can be effectively utilized. Okay. For developing the economy sustainably in the coming decades. So even if the person retires, their skills can be utilized in the other sectors. So hence this is a term that is associated with reaping the advantage of the elderly age bracket. So that is the term that is silver economy. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. Okay. So for now this will be sufficient for you. Next is literacy rates. So literacy rates defined very simply, that is the percentage of population of given age group that can read and write. But from the perspective of India, when we are defining the literacy rates, okay, so as per census 2011, okay, it is defined as a person aged 7 years and above who can read and write with understanding in any language. So they are treated as literate, but that can be taken also as per the different age groups. Okay. So adult literacy rates corresponds to ages 15 and above. The youth literacy rates between 15 to 24, and the elderly literacy rates are computed for ages 65 and above. Now the definition is very simple. Okay. A person who can read and write with any understanding, okay, with any understanding in any language. So अगर सिर्फ यही definition है literacy rates का, if this is the definition of literacy rates, are we also associating that with the good and quality education as per our aims in the SDG goals? Definitely it is not aligned in that manner. So hence only literacy rates cannot be a substantial indicator. Okay, I'm repeating myself. Only literacy rates cannot be a substantial indicator of whether that region or a country is also having good and quality and equitable education. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. ठीक है, तो एक बात है कि ठीक है, literacy rates are higher, so they are also associated with the socio-economic development. So in a country, whenever the disparity between the males and females literacy rates they start declining, that means that there is a progressive socio-economic development, but not necessarily indicating a good and quality education. ठीक है, but however economic development, okay, however economic भैया economic development is the cause and consequence of literacy. Very important. Is the cause and consequence of literacy. So very importantly बच्चों, हम अगर economic development की बात कर रहे हैं, so first of all please understand that whenever the incomes in the family are less, then the first and foremost requirement is that is of the food to satiate the hunger. But whenever the incomes start increasing, then the family also starts investing in good and quality education, and it leads to an outcome of increased literacy. And please understand that if the literacy rates increase, if the provision of good and quality education is there, okay, and which the families are able to avail because of economic development, then in turn it will also lead to better opportunities for job, okay, and skilling, because now the children are graduate, postgraduate, etc. So hence they can avail better job opportunities, and in turn resulting into economic development again because of again raised incomes. Okay, so hence this becomes a cycle, a positive feedback loop. Okay, increased incomes, better education, then again if the child is better educated, then leads to higher incomes in the family. Okay, but not necessarily in case of India. There is a lot of jobless growth. Okay, even if the students have completed their graduation, post graduation, However, there are still a lot of unemployment challenges in India. So jobless growth इसको एक term दे दिया जाता है. Okay. So we'll not be talking about those aspects for now, but for now just understand this, that it is very much a consequence of the socio-economic development. And one additional point, that is for India. Okay, as per census 2011, the literacy rate is 74, and for males it is much higher, that is 82%, but for females it is lower, that is 65%. So that clearly indicates that there is a literacy gap. Okay, so let's say we can say this in form of a disparity. Okay, there are different forms of disparity that are existing between males and females in India. One form of disparity is in form of literacy. So write down one additional point, that is, although the literacy rates have increased in India since the independence time period. So after the independence time period, they were very minimal, 20-30% types. Okay. So although the literacy rates have increased tremendously, however, there is still disparity between male and female literacy rates. That is around 17%. That is around 17%. एक और लाइन लिख लेते हैं. There is also a regional disparity in literacy rates. There is also a regional disparity in literacy rates. Okay. So very high literacy rates, around 99% across North America, across most parts of Europe, Australia, etc. Whereas it is low across sub-Saharan Africa, across countries of South Asia. So when we are saying the total literacy as 82%, it is quite low as compared to 99-98% across the other parts of the world. And one last point, write down, along with this, there is also a regional disparity with respect to literacy rates within the different parts of India. So for example, across UP, Bihar, the literacy rates are very dismal. For women, they are very low, around 50%. Whereas across Kerala, it is more than 95%. Okay. So there is a huge disparity of literacy rates, not only amongst the countries, not only amongst the regions, but also within India itself. Okay. So इसको बोलते हैं intra-regional and inter-regional disparities. So one form of disparity that we have understood today is in form of literacy. Disparities, inequalities will be a major portion when we will be completing the unit of RDP. For now, this might be sufficient for you. Okay. Next, I had started some discussion around population growth or the growth of population, where we had talked about the population chain. That is simple. Okay, crude death rate and crude birth rate. So birth rate minus death rate gives us the account of the population growth, right? That is simple. We understand that. Okay. Now let's start the discussion, very important discussion I am initiating here, which will lead us to different population theories. So please try to understand this particular discussion, okay, so that we will be able to understand the theories per se. Okay. Now when we are talking about the world population, so world population that was projected, okay, so world population was projected to grow, okay. So it was around 6 billion in 2000. It was projected to grow to 8.9 billion in 2050. Now, important aspect is that already we have reached the 8 billion mark. We are growing tremendously, not as per the projections, but upper scale projections. Okay? Projections दो type के होते हैं. What are the projections? Now see this particular graph. Okay? Please pay attention here very importantly. Okay. So this blue line, this is indicating, do not draw it, just listen to me first of all. Okay. Then you can draw that. So this is the particular line in this particular graph which is showcasing number of people in billions. Number of people in billions. There is a shaded area which shows that the projections can be on higher side or the lower side. I hope this is clear to you. So these are the projections as per the population that was 6 billion in 2000, but there were projections that this can be breached if the population growth is on higher side or can be lower if the population growth it declines. Okay, so by 2025 it was projected that we will be reaching the 8 billion mark, but we have already breached that. Okay, in 2023 we are already 8 billion now. Second, this particular line, it indicates the annual growth rate of population in percentage basis. Annual growth rate of population, not the population that is growing in absolute numbers. Annual growth rate in percentage. Okay. So, for example, now I will ask you two questions. Please pay attention. Did the population in absolute numbers increase here between 2000 and 2005? Yes. Population in absolute numbers, did it increase? Yes. Did it increase? Did it increase? Yes. So this is the population in absolute numbers. That is increasing, bacho. Isn't it so? So from 1000 to 4400, it has increased. Here we added 1000 numbers. Here we added 1500 numbers. Here we added 400 numbers. Okay. Yes. 400. Okay. Let's change this figure as per our convenience. We can do that. Isn't it so? We need to just understand the concept. So let's say 4100. So here it increased by 200 numbers. Okay. So I have changed the numbers hypothetically. I have given you some hypothetical numbers. You need to understand the concept. So is the population in absolute numbers increasing? Yes. Now within these 5 years, is the population growth, okay, population growth here that was more or not? Yes. Because here we added 1000 numbers, here we added 1500. Here we added 400. Was the population increasing in absolute numbers? Yes. But did the growth rate reduce or not? Yes. Did the population in absolute numbers increase? Yes. But the growth rate, has it reduced? Yes. So that means that the population in absolute numbers can keep on increasing, but the growth rate might start to decline whenever we start adding lesser number of the people as compared to the previous years or the previous decades. So that can result into a decline in the average growth rate of the population or the decline in the average decadal growth rate of the population. I hope this is clear. So here, even though the population is increasing, but the growth rate, okay, eventually has started declining. And more importantly, since 1970s, 80s, we can see that population growth that has started declining, that is for sure. So even though the population in absolute numbers, it is increasing, The growth rates, they are declining. Write down one point, that is the population in absolute numbers. The population in absolute numbers has reached 8 billion mark. Okay, by 2022-23, which was a projected figure for 2025. However, it is projected to stabilize by around 2050-60 at around 9 or 10 billion mark. Next point. The population growth rates annually have started declining globally since the 1970s onwards. And write down one last point. Historically, neither the population in absolute numbers nor the population growth rates have remained similar and have been variable. ठीक है, अगर हम डबलिंग टाइम ऑफ पॉपुलेशन देखिए, ये इंपॉर्टेंट टेबल है आपके लिए बिकॉज वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग सर्टेन कॉन्सेप्ट्स रिलेटेड टू इट. सो दिस इज एन इंपॉर्टेंट table, doubling time period of population. Okay, so period starting from 10,000 BC, something like that. The important aspect for us is that the population which was around 5 million, okay, then it reached 4 billion in 1970s, and 8 billion which was projected has been already breached. But now this is important for us, population doubling time period. Okay, so earlier it was around 1500, which reduced to 154 to 123, 47, 51, has been variable. It has not been static. Okay, so it was projected, but it has been reached earlier. That is a different aspect, but has not been similar. It has been variable. So write down one point, that the population doubling time period has been variable and not constant throughout the historical past. Okay. Now another important aspect, population growth rates agar hum dekhe. So population growth rates, they have not also been similar across different countries. Okay. So for example, still remains high for Liberia, Somalia, as we have understood, okay, from our discussion also yesterday. But negative population growth rates, where the death rates are even higher as compared to birth rates. So Latvia, Estonia, etc., having negative population growth rate. So population growth rates are also not similar across different countries. Write down very important point. The population growth rates are variable across different countries. As different countries are in different stages of demographic transition. Hence, some countries like Liberia, Somalia have very high population growth rates, whereas Latvia, Estonia, just write down names, do not write down figures, you will not be able to remember. Anyhow, I will be taking up this discussion in DTM. However, countries like Latvia, Estonia have negative population growth rates. Okay. Now, across world, what were the different phases of population growth? Let's understand that. Okay. So till 1800s, world population was growing steadily but slowly. So this graph must be also taken along with our discussion. So population in absolute numbers and the population growth rate. Just draw it once, do not draw it on every slide. I'll be showing this on every slide. You need not draw it on each and every slide. Just remember that this is the population in absolute numbers. Okay, the years and the projections for the future and the population growth rate. So this is the data for population growth rate. So population growth rate, it was highest in 1960s, 70s. Okay, then it started declining. But the population growth will still continue to happen. So let's understand the phases of population growth. Okay, draw this graph first of all. Then let's start the discussion around phases of population growth. So the first phase, that is around 1800s, the world population was growing but very slowly. Okay, not at a very fast pace, very slow. Okay, very slow and steadily. Now, large number of babies were born, but they died also early. You need not write that. I'm just explaining you some important aspects. We will later on relate that with DTM. So large number of babies were being born, but they also died very early, okay, because of lack of medical advancements. As a result, the total increase in population was low. Why? Because the population growth is the birth rate minus death rate. So birth rate was high, but death rate is also high. So hence, the growth becomes very nominal. So very nominal growth of population. Okay. However, by 1800s, 1 billion mark was reached. Okay. Then the next phases. By 1950s and 60s, now the population growth, it started happening. Okay. At a higher, faster pace as compared to the previous decades. Okay. And eventually we reached the 3 billion mark. And as the population started growing at a faster pace, we referred this to as the population explosion, bachcho. Okay. Then by 2000s, we have already breached the 6 billion mark. So we have reached the 6 billion mark by 2000s. So these are the phases of population growth. Okay. So I just wanted to give you a brief historical background of the population growth. Now let's move to the next discussion. So till now we have understood the population growth. The concept how population in absolute numbers is increasing, okay, but the growth rates, they are declining. Now for us, some questions arise here. First of all, how population growth happens? Why is it so that some countries, they are having high population and some countries are having less population growth rate? Okay. Next question is population growth a challenge or a boon? ठीक है, ये सब क्वेश्चन आते कि नहीं? The question first of all which is asked generally is population growth a boon or a bane, right? Why? Because population is also associated with resources. Population growth also has an impact on food, etc. So abhi ajkal generally whenever the debates are going on, the first assumption is that any problem that India is facing, whether it is unemployment, whether it is leading to the regional disparities, the poverty, etc., all of them are interrelated with population growth. पॉपुलेशन इतनी ज्यादा है इसलिए यूपीएससी में इतने सारे बच्चे बैठ रहे हैं प्रीलिम्स देने. More than 5 lakh students appearing in prelims each year. Why? Because the population is so high, we are having this demographic dividend, etc. Please understand that there are multiple associations, not only the negative connotations with the population growth, but that is our general understanding. Second, how the population growth is happening now was not happening in the previous decades, as we have understood here. The population growth has not been similar. In some time periods, there was a boom and then it has started declining. Why is it so? Why is it not that the population keeps on growing? Okay. Why is it so that the population growth rates, they might be high for some countries, they might be low for some countries. In some countries, we have seen that population growth rate is also negative. Why is it so? So, does this question come to our mind? Yes. And then we try to justify the population growth with the help of different theories. So for that, we need to have an understanding about the population theories. Okay. So theories which tries to explain the growth of the population. So population growth theories. Let's start a discussion around these aspects. And three important ones will be around the concept provided by Malthus, the idea of demographic transition, and third is the ideas proposed by Marx. Although there was no individual theory as such proposed by Marx for population growth, but his ideas were such that we have tried to interpret what are his ideas around the concept of population growth. Understood? So first of all, we will start with historical background, then we will move towards the discussion with respect to Malthus, then DTM, and then Marx, and then the other theories. What are their views about the population growth? Now, why this topic is important? Because individually they will ask you the applicability. So, first of all, let me tell you, along with the important topics, I'll be telling you how they can be asked. So, around this concept, that is population theories. So, in your notes, you will make it like this: Malthus, DTM, and Marx. Write down the three theories in one page, 3 column. How UPSC has asked this particular topic again and again, time and again, is a direct question with respect to applicability. Last year, 2 questions directly from this particular topic. Applicability. They can ask you applicability specifically for India. So discuss the ideas proposed by Malthus and are they applicable for India. Then they can ask you a comparative analysis. Between Malthus and Marx and so on, they have previously done that. These are the types of the questions that they generally ask from this particular topic. So population theories. First of all, write down historical ideas around population growth. So first of all, write down population growth population growth has been a topic of discussion since the times of classical antiquity. Since the times of classical antiquity. Classical antiquity. Okay, the time period that is associated with, okay, that is associated with Greeks, Romans, and then later on Arabs, etc. So classical antiquity, remember I had discussed one particular slide on the geographical thought evolution in the first class, right? So we will try to make interlinkages with thought in every unit. Now we have initiated into 2-3 classes. I would want you to understand the concepts of thought now. Okay, we will try to make interlinkages with the topics. Okay, interlink the name of thinkers, etc. Since the times of classical antiquity. Okay, so for example, in references in works of Confucius, Kautilya, Ibn Khaldun, Plato, etc. So these were the thinkers where there was a reference with respect to the term that is population growth. Somehow or the other, they were talking about population growth, the consequences, etc. Okay, for example, Kautilya, who is associated with the important work Arthashastra, has mentioned that population is very important. Why? Because large population is a source of political, economic, and military strength of a nation. So, in works of Kautilya, large population is advantageous because it helps in developing the military strength, the political and economic strength of a nation, because there will be larger population and hence the incomes of the people will be beneficial for that particular nation. Plato was a restrictionist, on the other hand, who advocated that there should be an absolute limit on population. So Plato advocated that there should be an upper limit on population. So now we know the ideas of Kautilya and Plato. Okay. So these are two contradictory viewpoints. On one hand, Kautilya mentions that the population can be a strength for a nation, whereas Plato is a restrictionist and mentions that there should be an absolute limit on the population. Similarly, Confucius is also of the view that an unsustainable increase in population can have environmental repercussions. Okay, can have environmental repercussions or environmental implications. Okay, so please understand, you can quote these particular works in the introduction, conclusion, in the body of the answer, but you must remember the name of these thinkers. So these were some historical aspects. Okay, now let's move towards the concept proposed by Malthus. So Malthusian theory. First of all, write down few points, then I will explain the ideas proposed by Malthus. So his name was Thomas Robert Malthus. Okay, Thomas Robert Malthus, and he had published an essay. First point, he had published an essay in 1798 on the principles of population. In 1798 on the principles of population. As per Malthus, next point, As per Malthus, population growth will always tend to outrun the food supply. Population growth will always outrun the food supply. Because he was having an experience of Western European countries. So, from the region where he belonged, okay, Malthus proposed an idea, that is, the population growth will always tend to outrun the food supply, as per his experience of Western European countries. As per his experience of Western European countries. But please understand that there can be two ideas. One idea can be, so for example, whatever you are visualizing around you. So you are sitting in a classroom, whatever you are visualizing around you, you try to generalize that. Isn't it so? There can be a second approach where something has been proved at a generic level, at the pan world level. And from that, we try to understand what can be happening at the regional scale. Here, the idea is that of the first approach. That is, whatever he is visualizing around him. This is the time period of 1700s, early 1800s. So, whatever he is visualizing around him, he is trying to generalize that for all the countries of the world. Will it be true? Will it not be true? Is it always happening, not happening? We are not going into that debate. We will understand that later on. For now, let's understand what were his ideas. So he's only visualizing something around him and is trying to generalize that. Kind of an ethnocentric approach. Okay. He explained the way in which nature controlled the population. Very important. He says that nature controls the population. Okay. Now let's try to understand few aspects. This is the time periods of late 1700s, early 1800s, right? His assumption is that population growth will always overrun the food supply. But he is proposing this on the basis of what he visualizes in Western European countries. Simple सी बात है. But very importantly, he says that it is the nature which controls population. Let's try to understand what do we mean by this assumption of his. But for now, we understand from our discussion of first class that there are two approaches. One is the deterministic, and other is the possibilistic. So deterministic approach is that approach which says that nature has a predominant control on man, and possibilistic approach which states that man is responsible for modification of the nature. So which approach is this? That is nature which controls the population. It is the deterministic interpretation. So hence write down the ideas proposed by Malthus. the ideas proposed by Malthus were deterministic in interpretation. The ideas proposed by Malthus were deterministic in interpretation because as per him, it is the nature, because as per him, it is the nature which controls the, it is the nature which controls the population. It is the nature which controls the population. I hope this is clear to you. So Malthus. Okay. Very importantly, let's try to understand what was his approach. So Malthus was a humanitarian. Next point, write down. Malthus was a humanitarian. And his approach to population problems was empirical. And his approach to problems was empirical on the basis of the Western European countries, on the basis of experience of Western European countries. Very importantly, next point, because of ideas proposed by Malthus, the economic approach to demography can be traced. The economic approach to demography can be traced. Very important. Write down another point, then I will explain to you. However, he neglected the role of science and medical advancements to control the population. To control the population. Now, his idea is an economic approach to demography. You will understand this. Okay? You will understand this. Next point, write down the population growth rate. The population growth rate as per Malthus is always greater than the growth of the resources. The growth of the resources. Okay? So, population growth rate is always greater than the growth rate of resources. And as per the assumption of Malthus, the population doubles every 25 years. These are the assumptions of Malthus. Okay. So as per Malthus, the population doubles after every 25 years. Next point. As per Malthus, the population growth rate is geometrical. As per Malthus, the population growth rate is geometrical. It is geometrical. That is 1, 2, 4, etc. So it is called as geometric series. Whereas the resources or food growth, happens arithmetically. Okay, that is linearly. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So population growth rate is happening geometrically, whereas the food or the resources growth rate, that is arithmetic. 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay. Next point. Hence, at one point there will be crisis. Hence, at one point there will be crisis where the population growth rate will outrun the food resources. Where the population growth rate will outrun the food resources, which is referred to as the Malthusian crisis or Malthusian catastrophe. Which is referred to as the Malthusian crisis or Malthusian catastrophe. ठीक है, चलिए कुछ लिख लिया है. Let's try to understand it now. We are clear with this aspect now. Now please understand that during this time period, that is 1700s, 1800s, during this time period, what is he visualizing around him? He is visualizing around him the situation of hunger, okay, food challenges, availability of food supply. So food supply. So please try to associate it with the Western European conditions. Okay. So food problems hai, abhi medical advancements nahi hai, technological advancements are now starting to happening, right? But during this time period, still much of the advancements in agriculture they are lacking. This is mostly a subsistence type of farming system. So these are primitive type of the societies where what is the situation? The situation is that there is limited agriculture output. Food supplies are restricted. It is not abundant. There are situations of famines, hunger, etc. And in this situation, he is witnessing a tremendous population growth. Okay? He is witnessing population growth. Higher population growth as compared to the previous decades. Please remember, whenever I'm saying that population growth is happening, it is not happening similarly across all parts of the world at the same time period. How population growth happened across Western European countries might not be similar to the similar situation in 17, 1800s in India, across parts of Africa, etc. We are talking about the region about which Malthus had made a reference. So he was visualizing around him certain circumstances. On one hand, he is witnessing famines and hunger situation because much of the advancements in agriculture revolution had to take a pace which had not taken a pace till now. And on the second hand, what is he witnessing? He is witnessing population growth which is much higher as compared to the previous decades. So he starts to assume that particular condition and comes to certain derivations. What does he comes towards? Okay, his understanding now is that population growth is happening geometrically. So this is the curve for geometric progression. Okay, so it is happening geometrically. Secondly, he talks about resources and very particularly food resources. Food resources grow linearly in an arithmetic progression. This is a geometric progression. This is an arithmetic progression. So whenever the growth is happening geometrically, it will be at a faster pace as compared to the linear growth. Okay. So hence, as per him, this is happening because he is witnessing the situation around him. It is not at all necessary this is happening always, but this is what he is witnessing. He is talking only about food resources. He is concentrating his discussion around food resources versus population growth rate. Now, his understanding is that, let's plot that on a particular graph. As per Malthus, the population growth rate is happening in this manner. And this is the growth of food resources. So inevitably there will be a point of crisis. Because both of them are not growing linearly, there will be inevitably a point of crisis, referred to as the Malthusian catastrophe, where the population growth that will overrun the food supply. So that is destined to happen. Why? Because as per Malthus, the population is doubling after every 25 years. So after every 25 years, the population doubles. Will the food production double after every 25 years? Not necessarily, because as per him, the food resources are increasing, but that too arithmetically, linearly. So as per him, there will be a crisis point inevitably where the growth in the population that will overrun the food supply. ये होगा ही होगा as per Malthus. I hope this is clear to you. So this is the situation which is being projected by Malthus. So that is, the population will overrun the production of the food. That is what he was able to visualize around him. Okay. Now, there are certain loopholes, but there are also certain merits in his ideas. Okay. But let's try to understand his complete perspective first of all. So he gave these ideas on the basis of two postulates, bacho. The first postulate that he assumed, okay, postulate is something that is necessary for you to propose your idea, okay. So let's assume, for example, we are trying to derive the idea, that is, what is the space that is required for a classroom. But first of all, I will have a postulate that it is necessarily required for geography optional students. It is necessarily required to be in Delhi. And third, there is an upper limit. That is, it should not have more than 200 students. So these are my three postulates. Now you can suggest me the size of the classroom. What should be the spacing between the seats of the different students, etc. It should be a hygienic one. It should not look very clumsy, etc. So I hope this is clear to you, the meaning of postulates. So whenever that particular idea is being proposed, that is done on the basis of certain postulate, they assume that this is happening and any contradiction to that is inevitable, is not possible, sorry. Okay. So any contradiction to these postulates, that is not possible. So his idea is on the basis of the postulate, that is, first, write down, food is necessary to existence of the population. Food is necessary for the existence of the population. Second, why the population growth is happening? Because the passion between two sexes is necessary. And hence, because of that passion, what will happen? And will remain nearly in its present stage. And because of the passion, the population growth rate will continue to happen. And because of that passion, the population growth rate will continue to happen. So passion is necessary and inevitable for him. And because of which, there will be reproduction which will keep on going on. Okay, next. Population if unchecked will increase at GR, that is geometric progression rate, while subsistence, that is food for him, will increase at an arithmetic rate. Okay, that we have already written. Now Malthus assumes that population doubles every 25 years. Okay, now let's assume that this crisis point, it has arisen on the basis of the postulate that population is doubling after every 25 years. Passion between the sexes, that remains constant, that will remain that. And very importantly, food is necessary for survival. He is not accounting for the different forms of yoga where one can learn to survive without food across multiple days. He is not acknowledging that. That doesn't happen. You need to have food, then only you can survive. So those case studies, those people who have been surviving okay, without food over multiple days, multiple weeks, fasting, etc., he is not accounting for that. He is only accounting for one particular scenario that you need food to survive. Okay? So hence, this crisis point is inevitable. If this crisis point is inevitable, then there must be certain checks which start to operate so that this particular point does not arise. And if it arises, then these checks will start operating. Okay? So what are these checks? As per Malthus, there can be different checks if the population growth rate is happening unsustainably. Okay? So population keeps on doubling, then there will be a time period when this crisis point arises and then the checks start operating. There are two types of checks. First are the positive checks and second are the preventive checks. Okay. So preventive checks are those checks which are taken into account by the people themselves, and these are external checks. Okay. So what are the preventive checks? So for example, moral restraint. Okay. So passion between the sexes is there, but there can be moral restraint. Postponement of the marriage that will expose a child to less reproductive age span. Right? We have already understood that. So postponement of marriage, birth control, abortions, etc. All of them are preventive checks. Not necessarily all people would want to have children, but he does not account for that. He accounts for a moral restraint, postponement of marriage. But very importantly, write it down that for Malthus, although the preventive checks can operate, but these are the abnormal circumstances. So ये abnormal circumstances हैं, these are the circumstances which may not operate in general. So write down, for Malthus, although preventive checks are there, however, he was not very enthusiastic about them. He was not very enthusiastic about that. Okay, for example, birth control, abortion, etc. Malthus was not very keenly enthusiastic about that. Then the positive checks. That is the external checks in form of wars, conflicts, diseases, droughts, floods, poverty, lack of food, etc. These are the positive checks. So write down, as per Malthus, in case of unrestricted population growth, the external checks like wars, conflicts, etc. start operating so as to control the population growth. Clear है एकदम? So crisis point हुआ नहीं कि preventive checks and positive checks, they will start operating. This is as per Malthus. ठीक है? Next point. So now see, wait, do not write, just listen to me. Yes, we are talking about Malthus as a humanitarian, okay, because he is talking about the unrestricted population growth, okay, and he's also talking about certain checks, and he's also talking about the other aspects. So for example, he's talking about education of the lower classes, etc. So he is an humanitarian. But when we are comparing about Marx and Malthusian ideas, then Marx remains to be more humanitarian. So just write down one point. Malthus is a humanitarian who talked about the population growth from the perspective of welfare of the humanity. And hence, the population growth must be checked. And hence, the population growth must be checked. Very importantly, next point, इसको next point में break करके लिखेंगे, he visualized the growth of population. He visualized the growth of the population and scarcity of the resources and scarcity of the resources as a major need to check the population growth. Now see, currently we are having more than 300 million tons of food grain production in India. Okay, there's around 320, 330 now. So the food grain production now in India is more than 300 million ton, but that was not the situation during the independence time period. So if the population growth keeps on happening at an unchecked pace, that would mean that there will be certainly a point where we will face the shortage of the resources. Although we can say that Malthus was only talking about food resources, which is also true in some or the other contexts in multiple countries. But not necessarily we must restrict his ideas, okay, only to the food resources. We can take it to the other resources as well. So basic idea remains true. That is, if the population growth rate remains unchecked, there will be an impact on resources. Definitely that will happen. Okay. But however, we must also understand very importantly, bacho, that is, this idea can be extended to the other resources as well, right? So hence this idea that the growth of population and pressure on resources, that is very important aspect, okay, as we are seeing now currently. But yes, we must take into account his idea that was being proposed at that time. Okay. Next, he was not very much in favor of the preventive checks. So for example, he was not very much in favor of the contraceptives, etc. Okay. Very importantly, he also talked about the social responsibilities. For example, education to lower and middle class people. Okay. Now let's do a quick critical analysis. Should we say that Malthusian ideas, they are completely applicable in the current day scenario? Not necessarily. These ideas which were proposed in the late 1700s, okay, because he was visualizing the environment around him, and on the basis of which he had proposed his ideas on the population growth, okay, and similarly he had also tried to compare that with the food resources, how the population growth is happening and how it will have an impact on the food resources. So whenever we are trying to critically analyze those particular concepts which were proposed way back in 1700s, 1800s, we cannot be extensively critical about them. We cannot negate the entire concept. Why? Because it was a foundation stone. Because it had provided a basis for the later ideas which were proposed on the population growth. So yes, these were the initial ideas, but later on there were the other ideas which were proposed as well. So hence, let's start this discussion, that is, write down critical analysis. So please understand that whenever we are trying to discuss any particular theory, okay, an idea that was proposed way back in 1700s, 1800s, first of all, we need to also give the credit to that particular idea, okay, and then we can critically analyze that. So, critical analysis. So, first point, write down Malthusian theory was proposed in late 1700s and provided a basis for the ideas on population growth and various outcomes. Later on, which led to the development of the ideas around population growth, okay, as per the demographic transition model, the Marxian idea on population, etc. Apart from the other ideas that we will understand with respect to population growth, that is with respect to Spencer, okay, Mill, etc. So these were the later outcomes, but for which the basis was being provided by the initial ideas proposed by Malthus. Okay. Next point in critical analysis, write down. Second point. He was more enthusiastic about the positive checks as compared to the preventive checks. So yes, he does makes a reference about the preventive checks, but he is not very enthusiastic about them. He is making a reference to the preventive checks, but he is more enthusiastic about the positive checks. Okay. So hence, as per him, the positive checks, they remain the more dominant one. Okay. He remains more inclined towards this concept of the positive checks. But however, are we not aware about the current advancements socio-economically? That is, more and more families, they are restricting the childbirths only to one child. Some families also going for no child policy, let's say. Okay. So they are not having any children. Some families are having only one child. So hence, in the current scenario, whenever there is a socio-economic advancements, okay, in the society, there are also chances that the childbearing is not wanted for, right? So write down in the same point that with the socio-economic development, there are chances that the total fertility rates, they start declining. Okay. So I will be explaining this when we will be discussing about the different concepts like Mill, Arsene Dumont, etc. For now, just remember this, that with the socio-economic advancements, the total fertility rates may start to decline. Okay. Just write down in bracket reference Arsene Dumont. Social capillarity. ठीक है? Social capillarity. So when we will be discussing about that, then I will be making a reference to this. Okay. A very important thing, he is also pessimistic. Okay. Isn't he pessimistic when he is not talking about the scientific interventions? Okay. Can there be scientific interventions? Definitely. For example, we have seen scientific interventions in wake of the agricultural revolution, right? We have seen that in case of green revolution for India, where the production levels have increased substantially. So in wake of which, can we say that this crisis point that he talks about, that this crisis point which he talks about, is it inevitable? Not necessarily, because the food production may also take a pace and not be going only linearly. Okay, so write it down. Next point, that is, with the scientific advancements, with the scientific advancements, the production in agriculture, the production in agriculture has also increased. Okay, and not necessarily linearly as predicted by Malthus. For example, as seen in case of India's Green Revolution, where the production is now around 320 million tons. Okay, 320 million tons. अच्छा, एक important बात है, that is when we are talking about this particular idea, okay, that there can be advancements in agriculture, there can be scientific interventions. Now this was also questioned by Bossara. ठीक है, so write down. देखो, जितना ज्यादा आप उसको comparative analysis करेंगे, then you will be able to get more marks in the answer, in the mains paper. Okay, so write down. The advancements in agriculture and association with population growth rate were acknowledged by Bossara. Were acknowledged by Bossara. ठीक है, were acknowledged by Bossara. Due to which the crisis point can be averted. Crisis point रहेगा, जरूरी नहीं है ना, crisis point can be averted. The next point, very important, he talks about the doubling time period. So what is the doubling time period? As per Malthus, it is 25 years. But is it necessary that it will be doubling after every 25 years? No, not necessary. Okay, so we have seen that in case of the different countries also. So years for population to double. Okay, so years for population to double. So for India, for China, for US, for Indonesia, that has been different. Okay, and doubling time period of population in the world, we have already seen that. So that is not similar across decades or also across countries. So write down one point, that is population doubling time period. Population doubling time period is not same for all countries and also not same across different decades. So doubling time of world population has been variable. Just write down some examples. China, the population doubling time period has been 65 years. For India, 36 years. Now this statistic is with respect to population in absolute numbers in 2011. Okay, now this has definitely changed. The demographic transition is happening across China and India. Okay, different stages. So yes, but you can always quote this data. Okay, next, write down one more example, that is between 1930s and 70s, the population doubled from 2 billion to 4 billion. Okay, at a different pace as compared to between 1850 to 1930, that is 1 billion to 2 billions. So bracket में लिख लो, 80 and 45 years. Okay, very importantly, he is trying to correlate two important aspects, that is the desire for children and the biological urge, that is the desire for sex. So these two are variable, these are not same. Okay, so the biological urge and the social pressure, that is to reproduce and have more number of children. These are not similar, but for him, these were same. And because of which he is constantly talking about the population doubling time period, 25 years, population growing at the growth rate, that is the geometric progression. Okay. The next point, very importantly, when he is talking about the positive checks, he is also trying to make them more supreme. He is saying that the circumstances like delayed marriages are unnatural, bacho, right? But nowadays, what we have seen? We have seen that with an increase in the literacy rates, okay, or with the socio-economic advancements, we have seen that there are delayed marriages, and also there are cases when there is no marriage at all. So hence, that are not an abbreviations in the current scenario. They might be an abbreviations in the time period to which Malthus had belonged. Okay, so write down next point. Delayed marriages. Delayed marriages. Delayed marriages or no marriages at all may have been abbreviations during that time period. However, there has been an increase in such cases in wake of increase in the women literacy rates and socio-economic empowerment of the women. Okay, bracket में लिखो reference to be made when we will be discussing the concepts provided by Mill and Arsene Dumont. ठीक है, Mill and Arsene Dumont. Now next, very importantly, he is trying to make a causal relationship between the positive checks and overpopulation. So will the positive checks only start operating when there is overpopulation? तो overpopulation होगा तभी क्या positive checks they will start operating? Not necessarily. So conflicts, wars, droughts, famines, etc. are they only an outcome of overpopulation? No, not necessary. They can start operating in any circumstances because of the political turmoil, okay, because of droughts can happen because of multiple reasons, etc. Not necessarily because of overpopulation. Yes, there might be conditions when both of them are interrelated, but not necessarily. Okay, so hence this is an over assumption, that is they will start operating only when there is overpopulation. No, not necessary. Okay, so again this relationship may or may not be possible. So yes, there were some parts of the world where we had witnessed that yes, Malthusian ideas they were in operation, but in primitive societies, okay, in those time periods, but rarely in operation in the current time period. Okay, rarely in operation in the current time period. But very importantly, applicability. Okay, so just write down few points that it initiated the theory building around such concepts, because initially we were talking only about the physical aspects in geography, isn't it so? So please try to correlate with the diagram in the first class, that how geography had evolved. So during these time periods, we were mostly concentrated only around the ideas that were relatable with the physical geography concepts, right? But somebody was now talking about the population growth. So somebody is talking about the concepts of population geography. That is in itself a new advancement, isn't it so? So yes, it initiated the theory building in the concepts around population geography. Very importantly, this idea itself, second point, okay, that's this idea itself that population growth can have an impact on resources. Now that has been acknowledged. So hence, because of which different governments have formulated the population policies. Definitely that has resulted into reduction in the population growth rates. Okay, very important. But also he is bringing in the ideas related to welfare. Okay, so that is very important in context of the Malthusian idea. And very importantly, we will later on study the ideas, okay, around the theories of limits to growth, okay, LTG. पूछा हमें क्वेश्चन है बहुत बार, limits to growth. Club of Rome. Now see, what was Malthus talking about? Malthus was primarily talking about population growth rate and food resources. Now limits to growth also builds on similar ideas, but additionally takes into account certain other parameters also. Okay, so this idea that is limits to growth, it also take into account the other parameters. So for example, it also talks about the limited resources that the humankind is having. So humans are having limited resources in wake of, let's say, the fossil fuels or not? Yes. Is the pollution increasing? Yes. So are we having certain limits to growth, or can we grow unlimitedly? So that is the idea which is proposed by limits to growth, which we will take up in the later discussions. Okay. But for now, just please make a point in your notes, that is this idea around limits to growth. Okay. That is called as the neo-Malthusian concept. So neo as in new, okay, something which reiterates any of the previous ideas. So it becomes neo-Malthusianist approach. I hope this is clear to you. Okay. So yes, this particular idea also reiterates the idea that was being proposed by Malthus, but in a very vague manner. So this idea is also talking about the same aspect, that is population growth cannot happen unsustainably, unrestricted. Okay, it needs to be restricted, but he does not talk only about, okay, the food resources. It takes into account the other parameters as well. So that is a differential. But yes, it reiterates the aspect proposed by Malthus, that is the population growth rates cannot be unrestricted, cannot be unchecked. There needs to be a check on that. ये clear हो गया? Okay. So I hope this is clear to you, these ideas that were being proposed by Malthus. So yes, we are done with this particular concept. Okay, how it is applicable, why it is not applicable, etc. So that is all for today's discussion. In tomorrow's discussion, we'll be meeting up again and we'll be discussing the concepts around the ideas of DTM, okay, and Marx, etc. Those students who are making summaries, okay, I'll be sharing you the Google Drive link and then you can upload your summaries today. Okay, so that is all for today's class. Thank you. Have a nice day.